welcome back everybody to another episode of Twin Rivers Gospel. This is the podcast ministry of First Baptist Church here in sunny Kamloops, British Columbia. I am joined once again by James Casson. Say hi, James.
Hey, Dustin.
How are things on the farm?
Ooh, we are busy, yes.
Oh, good. But things are productive?
Yes, definitely.
Things are paying off?
No.
It's
a farm.
Okay, well, still, I'm a little bit envious of you. Anyway, I don't want to go into too much small talk, because it's just going to be about people being sick and busy. So we'll skip all that and jump right into our much requested, high in demand topic today. Church governance.
Governance, yes.
This is the top of the charts kind of topic that we want. Again, this will rake in the listens and the likes and the downloads. So we are giving people what they want. Church governance. So we were just talking before we started recording that I find church governance or ecclesiology is the fancy elitist word, from ecclesia, the Greek or Latin meaning gathering, or church, doctrine of the church. Church governance, I find it very important. A bit of backstory to me: I came out of a very a bad church. And people have asked me about my experience, and they say, "What was the number one thing wrong?" And I think they expect me to say, "Oh, like lack of grace in the preaching, or the rampant misuse of charismatic gifts, things like that." But I always come down with number one issue was the ecclesiology, meaning we did not have a biblical ecclesiology, which meant, and I'm sure we'll get into this, we had a church where there was one guy at the front, and he was basically the tyrant or the dictator who controlled every aspect of the church.
The authority that couldn't be questioned.
That's right.
Or if he was questioned, he would just give whatever answer he felt.
Or try and talk his way out of it. And so there was really no way of holding him in account. There's really no voice of the congregation being represented. And so if we had a different ecclesiology, things might have turned out different, because all these other issues may have been able to have been solved through the church governance that had been set up. But there was none. Right. It was just fly by the seat of your pants, one guy in charge, and things went very south, and a lot of people were hurt. Yeah,
well, and I think that is very true, and it's a unfortunately a much too common experience. And the truth is, I mean, to temper this a bit, the truth is, even with the right ecclesiology, even if we say we can come down with a really hard understanding, I think there's a range anyway of what would be acceptable. But with the right ecclesiology, you can still have all kinds of problems.
That's true.
And it's not an absolute fix. But at the same time, if you have an improper ecclesiology to begin with, like you have like you said, like a one-man show, someone who can't be questioned, I'm the authority, and you need to submit to your authority without recognizing that obviously Christ is the head of the church, and the Word of God is over any authority in the church, and different limitations that are placed there. You're off on a bad foot, and the problems are going to naturally follow, as opposed to come in because of other imbalances or other problems. Yes. Because there's enough problems without having bad leadership in the church.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So it's often, I hear ecclesiology ranked as a secondary doctrinal issue, where you have like primary doctrines, which would be like, your creeds, divinity of Christ, virgin birth, Trinity, things like that. And then it gets ranked, ecclesiology is ranked as a secondary issue. So it fall into the same realms like baptism, things like that.
I would have baptism ranked up above.
We're Baptists, yes. So we have to have a number one.
Yeah, no. But I see what you're saying. Like, as far as ecclesiology being a secondary thing. So I think it's secondary in a couple of ways. One is people don't really think about it. True. Honestly, I came out of a Free Methodist background, which is a Episcopalian sort of system where you have bishops that are invested with authority. My uncle was a bishop,
and we'll define all these terms as we
as much as we can. I meant to come prepared with I had a diagram laid out of these different things. To be honest, I mix up Episcopalian and Presbyterian aspects.
Don't we all, James?
Well, I mean,
maybe they do too.
No, I don't think. Well, it depends on how into it you are, I guess. But so when I considered coming to a Baptist church, I was asking the question. Also, I'd been in and around Brethren churches, and they have a different setup altogether, as well as Mennonite churches. And in all those settings, obviously, a bad pastor will cause all kinds of problems.
Absolutely.
Someone who is not led by the Spirit, someone who's maybe not called to be a pastor, or someone who's a false shepherd. Those types of individuals are going to cause issues no matter what. But within those systems, the systems themselves are each given to different problems that you will notice if you're in there. So when I was asking the question, okay, should I be going to a Baptist church where you have a single CEO kind of pastor? Or should I be going to a mega church or a small church or a Baptist church where you have a plurality of elders who are equal? Or perhaps a Presbyterian church or Episcopalian or something like that, right? Like, which church should I go to? Well, when I started listening to different arguments for these different church structures, I realized, okay, the Bible does not define this as clearly as we would like, but at the same time, it does say certain things. We can see certain things in the scriptures, and you need to start with what the Bible does say, and then I would recommend that where the Bible is silent, we stop structuring things, stop creating positions as much as we can. And if we do, so for instance, let's say that we have a church treasurer.
Okay.
That's not a position I see unless you want to think about Judas, not a great role model.
Not a good example.
Yeah. Well, he kept the money bag.
His example does say that it did exist. The position did exist.
Yeah, someone kept the money bag. So anyway, so church treasurer, two things I guess you're going to take out of the scriptures. You better be careful about who you're choosing to be the church treasurer. I mean, Jesus knew Judas was going to betray him. So, but all the same, with a position like that, or janitor or something, someone that's in the church that's doing a specific thing. Deacons can be janitors because we're helpers, right? That's our role. But if you're going to have a specific role, chairman of the board for that matter, right? You don't want that role to take on some sort of authority that's not vested in that doesn't derive itself from scriptures.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
So you're saying we can create positions that are extra biblical, but they should never supersede the roles of the ones that are laid out in the scriptures. I think we shouldn't hold them in higher importance than what is actually revealed to us. I
think we should just be honest. Recognize, okay, well, this is not something that the scriptures specifically lays out. I think Pastor Joshua touched on this. I wouldn't be able to direct people to the sermon, but quite a while ago, or it might have been a meeting or something, where he mentions the fact that the scriptures do not actually give spending authority of the money of the church to the congregation, but we as a congregation, when we vote on our budget, like the body votes on the budget, and that's just a matter of wisdom. That it's the whole congregation that is determining where the money is allocated and how that happens, right? But we recognize, okay, the scriptures do not give us a direct command as far as this goes, and I think that's important. Okay. What quite often happens. So let's actually lay out some of these ideas.
I was going to say let's go through some popular church governances that you see in Christendom.
So you have the Episcopalian or Episcopal.
Okay, where does that come from? What does Episcopus mean?
Episkopos, I believe, is the Greek term for it, and I'm sorry because I had this all laid out and I was going to walk through it. But essentially, in the scriptures, there are a number of terms that are used for leaders in the church. One is overseer, and then one is elder. I'm trying to think. There's probably another one too. But overseer has taken on the role. It translated in the King James version as bishop, and in other translations as well. So this idea of bishop was given the understanding of an overseer who looks over or takes care of a number of churches, is responsible for a grouping of churches. And so this is the Episcopal sort of understanding that you have these bishops that are in charge of groups of churches, and then within, say, the Roman Church's system, you have one bishop, the Bishop of Rome, who has the authority over the church entirely. Obviously, it's the actual papal office that holds that authority, but the Pope in the Catholic Church can speak ex cathedra and speak infallibly, giving pronouncements from God, essentially. Whereas in other, like the Episcopalian churches, you don't have the Pope in the same sense, but you still have the bishop system.
Okay. And Episcopalian, they're birthed out of the English Reformation, correct?
Yes, I believe. Okay. Well, for the most part. Now there's a number of these different churches throughout the world. So it's not just the English church. Yeah. So the Anglican church is specifically the English church, which was sort of a mixture between Catholicism and Episcopalianism,
right,
with the Queen as the head of the church in a sort of a, well, the Queen. It would have been the King originally, but anyway. So that's an interesting sort of compromise in between those systems.
We'll save that for our church history podcast.
Yeah. So you have the bishops, and then underneath the bishops you have the priests. Incidentally, we should also note that this is a priestly system. So you have in the Roman Church you have the sacerdotal priesthood, and the Pope appoints the bishops, and the bishops appoint the priests, etc. And so it's a top-down. You would call it like a monarchical kind of system.
And so getting back to, because I mentioned the Reformation, one of the aspects that Luther was fighting for was the priesthood of all believers.
Yes.
Right. So that kind of flew in the face of what the Catholics were teaching.
Very much so. Right. Yes. Well, and in that sense, it's not the priesthood like the Catholic Church or the Episcopalian Church. These are in fact, and I don't believe we see that priesthood anywhere in the scriptures. A topic for another day.
Yes.
But as far as church structure, you have that structure. Then you would have the Presbyterian structure, where you would have presbyteries, where you essentially have congregations who are appointing elders in this setup. But the elders are a plurality of elders. So one thing about the Episcopalian system is you would have one priest in charge of areas. So there's a huge variety.
I'm really not up to date on my Episcopalian ecclesiology, so I'll agree with you, whatever you say.
We should actually keep this brief, just because I don't want to misrepresent these things.
Yes.
But anyway, within the Presbyterian system, you would have a session, which is your group of elders appointed by the congregation that are looking over one or more churches, and then you would have a general assembly, I believe, which is above that, which is also some of the members of the session, some of the regular elders would be part of the General Assembly, and so there's some overlap between these groups, and so it is more like an oligarchical system, where you have lots of leaders, like sort of like what would you call it? How would you define that?
A bunch of leaders, like a.
You have professional theologian leaders leading the congregations. There's tons of practical reasons for these different things, but ultimately, what we want to ask, the question we want to address is, what's the biblical model?
Right?
Like, is there a biblical model?
Yes. Is there? Tell me, James. Is there a biblical model?
Well,
and what do we do at First Baptist Church?
Well, at First Baptist Church, we have a plurality of elders. So,
and why is that important?
Why is a plurality of elders?
Why is a plurality important?
Plurality of elders important. Basically, whenever you see elders mentioned in the New Testament, they are always plural.
Always plural.
Always plural. I mean, there's going to be some exceptions, but generally speaking, when you're talking about a church, it's the elders. One example, Acts 20, Paul, verse 17. Paul, now from Miletus, he sent to Ephesus and called the elders. Right. One group that we haven't mentioned yet is the idea of a non-structural church structure
where there's no elders.
No elders. Yeah.
So instead of one elder or plurality, there's absolutely no leadership.
Elders. Or say a brethren setup where you have all the fathers. Now there's variations within the brethren movement. Sometimes you'll have permanent elders groups. But anyway, say a brethren group where you would have all the fathers are elders, which flies in the face of the instruction to not be many teachers. But leaving that aside, when you see this, Paul sent from Ephesus and called the elders, let's just draw two conclusions. One, there are elders,
absolutely,
right? Plural. He's going to one city, but he's calling multiple people. Yep. Secondly, they know who they are. Like the elders are recognizable. So if you have no elders in your church, you're in a church that doesn't match the pattern that's set up in Scripture.
Right.
And obviously, this is not the only place these things are mentioned. In Acts 14, verse 23, and when they had appointed elders for them in every church with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. Yeah. So you have elders, again, plural, in every church.
And this would kind of fly in the face of an elder is just an old person.
Yes,
you can't appoint old people.
Well, the elders probably generally were older.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have Timothy, where Paul says, "Don't let anyone
despise
your youth."
Yes.
So it's not a strict rule. The elders are those who are in charge. They're put in charge. Again, in this instance, they appointed elders for them in every church with prayer and fasting. They committed them. to the Lord. All right, so there's prayer and fasting involved. These men are called to this role. We think of the teaching that if you desire the position of elder, you desire a good thing. Right. So there is a calling to it, and there is a position that is recognizable, that's set apart, but it's plural. So at First Baptist, we have a plurality of elders. So even though if Pastor Josh would do the primary amount of teaching, and there's a reason for that. For one thing, he has a real gift in that area, and that's not to say that Tyler or like Ryan are not gifted in teaching, but there's variations of these gifts, and so and also because Tyler is part-time or very, very part-time,
bivocational,
and Ryan is serving in other areas. This is how we divided up these gifts.
Yeah, and as Paul or Peter, one of them says, let the ruler or the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double blessing, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching.
Exactly. So it's
not every elder has to preach and teach. Is what he's saying.
They all have to be capable of it. But they don't all have to preach and teach. But there's a more than just the preaching side of pastoral leadership. So one thing to note here, just as far as our understanding within First Baptist Church, all three elders, although one teaches more often than the others, are equal.
That's right.
Yeah. They can challenge each other, and I've been with these men for years now, and I can tell you they do. They do challenge each other and are perfectly willing to stand out by themselves and address an issue. And that's important. You don't want... so this, essentially, because of what we've talked about so far, dealing with the fact that you never see a single CEO pastor style, you'll gather that I disagree with that position entirely. And that was one of the issues in your scenario.
Absolutely.
It's just not the pattern of Scripture. Now, that's not to say if you're in a church with, a single pastor that you need to run. You can always have pastors be raised up within the congregation.
That's right, especially if it's a small new church.
Absolutely.
It takes a while for that plurality to grow.
And you may only have enough to support one pastor.
That's right, too. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have a senior pastor or someone else who's there, who's like we have retired Pastor Al Hearn in the congregation. I mean, he would be absolutely listened to, even though we don't recognize him as an active pastor in the church anymore. He's still a pastor in the church.
That's right. I still address him as pastor.
Absolutely. 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's a blessing, and that might be the type of scenario in a smaller church or setting. But as a Christian, this is something else to note just over the whole of it. The New Testament documents are written to local churches. These local churches have recognizable elders. So if you are someone listening to us and you're not part of First Baptist Church, you consider yourself a Christian, but you don't know who your elders are, you are not living consistent with what the Scriptures teach. And that is something that is serious. You need to actually address that. I, in my own life, remember when I was doing pre-engagement counseling.
Premarital counsel?
No, it was pre-engagement.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we were serious. Well, actually, I'd only known her for 3 months, and I was ready to marry her. And so we were like, we should probably get some pre-engagement counseling. So we did pre-engagement counseling, and I thought, hey, I'm a pretty good Christian, I guess. I don't know. I was a little uppity about it. And I got challenged, and he said, "You're not part of a church. I cannot agree to that. You claim to be a Christian, but you're not part of a church. You don't have elders. You don't like."
Yeah. Who are you accountable to?
Yeah, who you're accountable to. And I said, "Oh, well, don't worry. I can't get Sundays off right now. I'm gonna do this, that, and a 6-month plan." He's like, "No, that's not good enough. You're Christian. You've been Christian for a long time. You know better. You need to fix it now." And that I was really choked about that, but it was important, and I want to pass that on to anybody that would be listening. Just based on this, you should know who your elders are, because that's a scriptural pattern. The Scriptures are not written to you by yourself somewhere. They're written to the body of Christ.
So at First Baptist, we have a plurality of elders. We covered that.
Yes.
Right. And then, we're not Presbyterian. we're not Episcopalian. We don't have a priest.
So this is to summarize, and I wish I could make this a little more organized. There aren't really Episcopalian arguments from the Scriptures that bishops are set up in the sense that we have them in the Episcopalian system, or even the Presbyterian system, where you have leaders above the local elders. So there is this overseer position, and I don't have my Greek New Testament with me, but the overseers and elders in the scriptures are interchangeable.
You're saying that the term for bishop or overseer, which is episkopos, is used in the New Testament. It's used interchangeably with the word for elder, and that's presbyteros?
Presbyteros, yes.
Something like that. So it's used interchangeably.
It is, yes. Well, it appears to be. So the argument, I guess, is that overseer is different from elder, and so you get that position in there, and then the overseer oversees elders, and then you build that out of that. But in back in Acts 20, verse 17, now from Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called the elders of the church to come to him.
That's
so they're
presbyteros.
Presbyteros.
And it's plural.
Plural. Elders, multiple of them, recognizable, so you have that all right there. And then down in verse 28 of chapter 20, pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to care for the church of God.
Okay, so he's calling the elders overseers.
Exactly.
Episkopos.
So the same group of people he's talking to, it's the same address. And at the beginning, they're elders. They're called elders, and in the end, they're called overseers. And in other places, we see that they have the same designation, roles. They're spoken about in the same way.
Right. So what you're saying is that the reason we have a denominational split is because Luke could not be consistent with his language.
No. Okay. So the name of the church father. I want to say Alexander, but it's probably not. There was within the 2nd century, 100 to 200 after Christ, there was a bunch of issues in the church, and one of the church fathers essentially penned a letter that said, if you're having issues, talk to your local bishop. No, maybe it was in a council, but anyway. And out of this, you start to see a favoring of large center pastors, or elders, being treated differently. And so it starts a tradition that develops into this episcopal system where you have bishops that are considered above elders. And so the elders or the priests or whoever come to the bishops, and then they address that.
Okay, so it wasn't Luke. I take that back.
It wasn't Luke. No. It was a development that happens later. So the basic, I think, and this, again, I haven't studied it enough to give you a real firm position. It develops over time, and most people would just argue this is the way the church develops, so we should keep it because of the value of the tradition.
Right.
Additionally, when you think about, we are an autonomous congregation, so we are separate. We are in a sort of the fellowship of evangelical Baptists.
Yes.
But we don't get directives from them ever.
That's right.
That's not even something they can do. They could kick us out if we were totally heretical. They just say, "Oh, sorry, you're not part of us because of these reasons." But that's it. Like they don't have any authority.
Like what if things are really going sour in our church? Like not theologically, but like there's abuse or things or like misspending of money. Like, do they have authority to step in?
Not regulative authority. Okay. So they don't have the authority of they can come and address it for sure. So if any of our churches could go to another church within the denomination, pastors could go. They don't have authority over those congregations though. The local pastors do. But you could go to the congregations and say, this is wrong, this got to stop, right? Bring it to the attention of the congregation could address it.
Okay.
But this brings in one of the reasons why you have these other systems. The Church of Christ is to be one. We're to be unified. We're to be one even as the triune God is one, right? And so you have this problem of how does a Baptist church like ours deal with the issue of the unity of the church? Are we splitting up over every little minute detail? So at the end of the day, the reason I think we should be holding to both a congregational form of government, which is not to say that the congregation is the authority. The pastor, we are to submit to our elders.
Yeah, maybe we should define congregational because we've done all the other ones. What's a congregational church government?
Well, that would just be to say that the congregation as a whole ratifies or puts into place elders and deacons. And so in our case, we're doing this through our business meeting, Robert's Rules of Order we follow, and these types of things. Those things are not biblically mandated, but they're just part of the culture that we're in. And so we do that. Some of it is just traditional. That's how it's been done. But we see, as we pointed out earlier, when the apostles themselves, who are, by the way, apostles are different from bishops
or elders.
They were appointed by Christ. They knew Christ. They were directly appointed by Christ. Paul defends his apostleship multiple times, and that's all, he gives these reasons.
So he has some authority that you don't see today.
He speaks with God's authority when he addresses things. And so that's a different thing altogether, leaving aside groups that use the term apostle within their circles as a different sort of an issue.
Another podcast for another time.
Yes, yes. So within our circle, we would be careful about the issue of separating off too much, having churches that are going wacko and going crazy with things. And so the congregation appoints pastors, but the congregation submits to the direction and the leading of the pastors. And I do think there is an argument to say that pastors should be involved in a primary sense in the election of new pastors. This is a little controversial because of the idea of like hiring and that type of thing. But you see Paul appointing elders in congregations. So there is an element of leadership that is involved. But at the same time, the congregation themselves as a whole need to ratify and direct it. That is the idea behind congregation.
And there's the command. I think Paul says it to Timothy to train up young men from amongst himself. So that's one of the jobs of a pastor, is to be on the lookout. He should know his congregation well, and he should be able to recognize, hey, you have giftings. Yeah, you have the giftings of preaching and teaching. You know the Bible, the theology really well. Hey, do you want to pursue to aspire to the role of elder or overseer, and then the congregation and the pastor can oversee that training. Yeah,
and I think we're going to wrap up here shortly, and I think that brings up an interesting point. There are lots of different and biblical arguments here both ways. Like, do you desire the position of elder? You desire a good thing. The different statements in the scriptures that indicate different ways, I guess. It's not a real clean-cut system, but I do think in the scriptures, we see clearly there's only two positions. You have deacon and elder in the church.
Right.
That's it. Those are the only real prescribed positions in the New Testament. And so putting another level of church bureaucracy or leadership above that is a very it's a dangerous thing. Leadership, if it's not biblical leadership, it can be problematic, as we started with. So I do believe that the congregational approach is correct, but as long as we recognize that we're not some sort of democracy in the common sense of democracy, we are led by Christ, who is the head of the church. He's the ultimate head of the church, but the congregation recognizes those whom Christ would have be leaders within the church, and then of course maybe we made a mistake. It's very possible, and then they need to be removed as well. So it is something that we should all consider and then pay attention to, especially if you're in a congregation, regardless of what sort of denomination you're a part of.
Right.
Congregations are held accountable for the teaching and for the leadership within their congregation in the scriptures. And so we are to be alert, and we're to be paying attention and to make sure that we aren't listening to a wolf in sheep's clothing.
No, blown about by every wind of doctrine.
And plurality of eldership is just so important for that.
Yes.
That is one of those main
Can't stress that enough.
Yeah, and just that it's fully recognized that they are equal before God, and are accountable. Even as we have elders who we are to submit to. We're told to submit to our elders within the scriptures. Elders have boundaries, and all of them must be submitted to Christ and submitted to the scriptures.
And to each other.
Absolutely. And that is key.
Yes, yeah, you don't want a one pastor and then a bunch of yes men surrounding him and call it a plurality. You want men who can think for themselves and are able to stand up to one another. And I do think we have that at First Baptist Church.
I do. I will say I love having 3 pastors. I think that is a good number, even in a small church. Just because if you have 2 guys, then even if they do have the ability to disagree with each other, they may still like.
Well, I'm on salary, so my vote counts more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So, that wraps up. We're trying to deliver some shorter podcast episodes to everybody for those who have shorter attention spans or maybe just don't have the time to listen to hour and a half talks on ecclesiology. I mean, really, you should all be lapping this up. It's so gripping and interesting. But I will say, non-facetiously, it is very important.
It is
very important. And when I said it's a secondary doctrine, I mean it's more something that you can't really hold within a church, you can't hold two different ideas of ecclesiology. It's something that divides us denominationally, but
it does.
I'm not going to say the Presbyterian is not a Christian because he has a different church governance than I do. So that's what I meant by secondary doctrine. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up, and maybe we'll dive into this more in further episodes. Or you teased me by saying we're going to do a whole podcast series on Robert's Rules of Order. So stay tuned for that. That's our summer blockbuster coming out here. Step aside, Jaws. It's Robert's Rules of Order. And again, that's important because God says everything must be done decently and in order.
Well,
so that's the tool that God has given us, or Robert gave us, and we use it. Anyway, but we should sign off. We have like 14 kids upstairs who will soon be unsupervised. We gotta run.
Speaking of leadership.
Yes, but thank you all for joining us this week. It's been another episode in the bag. So if you're in town on a Sunday morning, please come check us out. 10:30. 10:30 we start. I'm always there early, so I can't remember what time we start. 10:30 we start, 454 Columbia Street. That's First Baptist Church. Come check us out. Come worship with us. We look forward to seeing you. Until our next episode, be blessed.